Welcome to the Trader, a Traitors podcast. I'm Matthew, a writer and 100% Traitors superfan working in TV development. The Trader features deep dives into every episode of English-speaking versions of the show, and this season of the podcast is dedicated to the Traitors UK Series Three. To help me get into episode 8 today is, I believe, for the first time this season, a fresh face to the podcast, although you may be very familiar with this person, or at least her very distinctive voice. Let's meet her. SOFY, spelled SOFY, is an independent songwriter and alternative artist from Leicester whose music is heavily inspired by Britpop and early 2000s indie. Dork magazine described her as the voice of a generation and a much needed messiah for the messy. In 2024, she had over 1.2 million listeners on Spotify. She's played at festivals such as Glastonbury, Latitude, Boardmasters, Truck, and many others, as well as having toured with and supported artists such as Alfie Templeman, Tash Sultana, Seagirls, and Liam Gallagher. Her next mixtape, Another Day in Paradise, is due out March 7th, followed by her second nationwide headline tour in April. Sophie, what a treat. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing this morning?
You left out Traitors fan in that bio. The rest of it was perfect.
Of course, that's the obvious thing. I hear you are a big fan of the show.
I am. Yeah, aren't we all?
Well, I hope so. I mean, what do you love about the traitor so much?
I don't know. I think my favorite thing about it is the sort of like insight into the human psyche and like the herd mentality
Yeah.
thing that obviously the whole game is about. And I love it when just the tiniest thing can be taken out of context and then everyone jumps on the bandwagon. And obviously the round table beef is brilliant. And it always seems to attract the like iconic characters. I think the casting team on Traitors deserve a raise. Although I do feel like I was more connected to last year's season characters than this one, but maybe because we're only halfway through. And last year was the first season that I watched, so maybe it's that.
Okay. I think that's been quite a common observation this series, I think. In the most recent episode of the podcast, someone sent in a voice message about that very thing, saying they didn't feel like the cast was as likable as before. So that's interesting that you've brought that up as well. How are you coping following the banishment of our dear icon, Linda?
I mean, it was always gonna happen, wasn't it? When she did that crying at breakfast, I was like, no, what are you doing? We were literally like sat on the sofa like you've just nailed your own coffin. But did you see that there was a billboard with her on it in Leicester Square, and
Yes.
that went out on the day of the episode that she was banished. I walked past Leicester
Oh,
Square and I was like, why are they promoting her? I was like, I bet she's getting banished. So I kind of thought that was a bit of an L from the producer
okay.
because I did think it was a bit of a spoiler. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, but maybe
What's
I was reading into it too much.
No, no, I read into everything on this podcast way too much. And my favorite thing about that billboard is that Linda actually went and like took a little selfie with
I
it.
know, I
So
saw that. It's so funny.
love
She's
that.
an icon. I loved that interaction, and I'm sure that you spoke about it in the last episode's podcast, but when at the end of the death match, when it was revealed to Fozia that Linda was the traitor, and she was like, I knew it was you, and Linda goes, get over it. I
Yes.
was dying.
Yeah,
So
absolutely
I think
obsessed with
Love
Get
and
Over
Bones
It.
had a field day with that one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My highlight of that whole episode, pretty much.
Yeah, so good.
Now, listeners, you need to get ready to listen but even more carefully because it's time to introduce our podcast game of deception and trickery. This is the Trader Traitor. The mission for Sophie and I from here on in is to tell one sneaky lie to one another. The lie has to be a fabrication or a made-up fact, big or small, about the traitors or about ourselves or about anything else. For example, I could lie and say that Linda is actually lined up to be the guest on the next episode of the podcast, which I hate to say is not true at all.
It's not too
However,
late.
it's not too late. I don't want to jinx it.
You could have got her today. I would have stepped aside. I would have done.
However, and I don't think Sophie would buy that, but I what I couldn't lie about is I couldn't say that I don't want Linda to come on the podcast because I don't like her. That would be a fake opinion. So we're
Yeah.
looking for fake facts or false pieces of information rather than just fake thoughts and feelings. At the end of the episode, we will guess each other's lie, and listeners, you can join in too and see how good you are at traitor detecting. Sophie, are you ready to betray me?
I'm ready to betray you. I hate to say it, but I am.
In fact, I already know you will be quite good at this game because I've been told that you are a bit of a real life traitor on tour and that you and your band play frequent pranks on each other. Sometimes instruments go missing and you've made each other drinks that don't, or ordered drinks that don't exist and pretended that people have nicknames and you fool them into believing they've always had that nickname and they've got, is all of this true?
Yeah, that's true. When you're on tour, like the thing about being a musician and touring that a lot of people who aren't in the industry don't know is it's like extremely, extremely unglamorous and like 98% of the time you're just sitting waiting for something to happen. You're
Yeah.
traveling somewhere or you're waiting for the band before you to finish playing and it's a lot of sitting in a dressing room with the same five people. So you got to do things to make it interesting. But I think yeah,
Yeah.
you it's really, really fun. It's called Prank Club. We've been doing it for years now. But it is now getting to the stage where, and this is my favorite thing about it, where it's kind of getting a bit like Traitorsy, where I'll say something that actually needs to happen or something that actually has happened. Is this Prank Club? Like people don't believe anything that you say. One of my favorite ones that we did was when we went to go and pick up a van we're going on tour to Ireland and we were going to go pick up this van. So me and Ed, one of the other guys in the band, went to go collect the van. Everyone else was at home and they were going to meet us there and we were going to take the van over the border on the ferry. Anyway, boring. But we've been sitting waiting for this van for like 4 hours because there was something wrong with it. And I was like, right, I'm bored. Let's do a prank club. So we sent a text out to the boys because they already knew that we'd been waiting for ages for the van. And we were like, oh, look, guys, they've now just said the van isn't going to be available. Obviously, we've got our ferry in like 5 hours. They've said that we can take a four-seater and a trailer, and one of us in the trailer for the whole time. And also, we can take it in turns. And really sorry about this, but like, it's the only thing we're going to be able to do in order to like get this ferry and go play the show. And it was hook, line, and sinker. People were sending screenshots of like Google searches being like, don't think it's legal to sit in a trailer. Are you sure we can do this? It was really good. That one was really funny. But yeah, you kind of had to be there.
I can imagine several of the contestants from this year's Traitors being very upset about that, and being very dramatic about it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're the perfect person to play this game then. So we're going to put your skills to the test, and our game officially begins now. I'm sorry if any part of that was a lie. I don't think it was. I believe everything you said. So we are ready to lie to each other, and we're ready to get into episode 8 of the Traitors UK Series 3. So we start with our usual recap. We're reminded that there was the death match in the last episode, or the outcome of the death match, I should say. Poor Fozia has gone bye-bye. I love that they included Linda's get over it line just in the recap, because like we needed to be reminded of that,
Of
obviously.
course, of course.
In the mission after that, the players rescue Anna, Alexander, and Leon, but are very suspicious of what's going on. And some of the faithful start to look at those they're closest to as potential suspects, like Leon and horrifyingly for me, Mina. There's high drama at the round table between Alexander and Leanne, but ultimately it is our queen, Linda, who is banished, and she reveals that she is a traitor. Mina ends the night by choosing Charlotte for recruitment, and they're about to meet face to face at the fire pit, which is where the episode ended. Sophie, did you think Charlotte was a good choice for recruitment?
Um, Initially, I had quite mixed feelings about it because originally thought that she should choose Linda because Linda is so
Do you mean
not
Lisa?
Linda, Lisa, sorry, yeah, I always get them two mixed up. Lisa. the vicar. I yeah, I thought that she should choose her because obviously she is sort of so obviously a faithful now that she would just sail so far under
Hmm.
the radar they get into the final. But then at the same time, I was also then thinking, oh, maybe then there'd be questions about why she wasn't being banished.
Mm, yes.
So I did then think that Charlotte would be the next obvious choice. And I
Yeah.
think from what happened in the episode, she might have chosen wrong.
Well, yeah, what a turn we end up seeing.
Yeah,
It's quite exciting and worrying.
I
And
know.
also,
The
you're
kind
not
of drama that
the
I was waiting for, though. I feel like there hadn't really been that much internal like factions yet. So
yeah, yeah,
get
yeah,
into it.
definitely. And you are not the first person to mix up the contestants because so many of them have names that start with the letter L. So we've got Linda, Lisa, Leon, Leanne,
Oh
Livy.
yeah,
It is really quite confusing.
that's
So
so funny. I hadn't thought about that.
So the episode starts fully. We're back, we're at the fire pit. Charlotte arrives. Mina reveals herself. And Charlotte is like a funny reaction. She kind of almost looks annoyed at first.
She did, didn't she? I thought that.
Yeah.
Really salty. I was like, oh.
But I mean, very quickly she sort of like starts to get into it and she's like, okay, okay, I can do this. Mina delivers the ultimatum. It's just I just love the way they're directed. Like, Mina, you're gonna have to do this really seriously. Here's your line. So Mina says, "Join me as a traitor, or I will murder you tonight." Which I just love the way
Russian
she
was
says
bang
murder.
on. That was really good.
And Charlotte says, oh, no, sorry, Mina says, I feel like you're smart. You probably would have caught on to me eventually. You've had a bit of heat on you, but that was a while ago. You've proven yourself as a faithful. I want someone I can go to the final with. We cut to Charlotte in her interview saying, well, she's shocked it's just Mina. She thought there was more than one traitor left, which fair enough. And she then says to Mina, yeah, you know what? I've got everyone on my side, I think, but I don't want to die. I probably have to accept. Like, kind of, I think that was kind of obvious she was going to accept, right? Surely. Um, and Mina gives her her cloak and tells her first job as a traitor is now they're going to have to go and pick someone for murder. So we're back at the turret. Charlotte is like already in. She's like already a traitor. She the transition is excellent.
Do you not think that she always wanted to be one though? Because I don't understand the Welsh accent thing otherwise. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like she went in there with that Welsh accent, hoping that the producers would think it was interesting and like a good traitor storyline arc for her to be a traitor. So I think
Yeah,
I don't understand why she'd want everyone to be as trusting of her if she was. I don't know why she'd be worrying about it as much if she wanted to go in as a faithful. Do you know what I mean?
that's a very good point. And yeah, you're probably right. Actually, she thought this would get her cast as a traitor. I'm jumping away. I wasn't going to mention this till later, but I'll mention it now. We've actually had an email about Charlotte and her accent from Steph. So Steph makes a point that actually nobody's we were all kind of laughing at Charlotte and her choice to do a Welsh accent, but Steph has like this opposite opinion, and I think it's very valid. She says, "Hi, Trader Podcast, loving the show. Just wanted to point out that everyone's saying that Charlotte is putting on a pointless accent is failing to notice that everyone trusts her, so it's working. I've always
It's
said,
true.
yeah, she says, I've always said that no one with an RP accent, like a received pronunciation London accent, does well in this show. And Charlotte is proving my theory. So actually, I guess Steph's right. Like, we're all laughing at Charlotte.
Well, also, to be fair, a little bit of tea, and I don't know if I'm actually allowed to say this, but I'm sure I am. It's not really like essential to the show, but my friend Luke, who's our sound engineer for live sound, he also does lots of like telly work.
Mm.
And lo and behold, he worked on Traitors, so he does all the
Uh,
like miking up
yeah.
and everything, and like sometimes we'll like hold a boom in the room or whatever. And he said that he was just so impressed by how far she went with it. Like apparently she was even like asking for Welsh cakes at breakfast at the beginning and like no one suspected a thing. Even he was
Well,
surprised. And then when he heard her in like the what's it called? Like the
the sort
you
of
know like the talking
confessionals or
heads.
the
She had a
mivs.
different accent. He was like, "What?" So yeah, apparently she really went all in.
Yeah, well, there we go. So that, or maybe the point is proven that it has worked, even though we're kind of laughing at her. So hey, maybe we're wrong. Uh, so we're in the turret. Charlotte is maintaining her Welsh accent for Mina. I did wonder, like, was she going to let it go and be like, Mina, I don't actually talk like that. But no, she keeps it up.
I thought she was
And
as well, but then
Mina introduces her to the sisterhood, and Charlotte realizes actually it's great that we're going to get to murder tonight because then no one will think there's been a recruitment in the morning. Um, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that makes much of a difference, actually. I think that even if um, there was no murder, I still think the players don't really know how many traitors are left. So I don't know if it makes much. I think they all still think there are two left anyway, but hey. So Charlotte and Mina discuss their options for murder. They go to Lisa. And again, they say, yeah, everyone kind of thinks she's faithful. No one's going to banish her. What's the point in keeping her around? They think about Anna, and they're wondering, is it too obvious because Anna voted for Mina last night? Will that sort of frame Mina? But they kind of dismiss that. They're like, nah, she was one person. It would look too obvious if Mina was the tr so she's on their mind. And then they talk about Jake, and they say, well, he was so good with his Linda suspicion. But they think that was the only thing that kept him in the game anyway. And it's funny, it's Charlotte who says that. She like again, she's like already a traitor. She's like, yeah, that's the only reason he was still here. Get him out.
mm,
So it really, I'm obsessed with. I'm Team Charlotte. All of a sudden, I'm obsessed with how Charlotte is just an amazing traitor immediately. So they agree on whoever they agree on. We don't get to find out. Charlotte writes the name down this time, and she tells us she's a bit nervous about her new role. And then yeah, she goes, well, I have been keeping the secret of my Welsh accent. Um, so, but she's aware that maybe Mina will like double cross her at some point. So she's been quite smart about it. Charlotte knows like she might have to play the game in different ways.
yeah.
We cut to breakfast then. Next day, Joe, Alexander, Leanne are the first to arrive. Joe's talking about the numbers coming down. He's very excited about getting to pick a croissant first ahead of everyone else. That's his main priority. And Leanne's really happy they got a traitor out last night. She's she's so icy with Alexander still. Like he's kind of laughing about things a little bit because the two of them went at each other at round table, but
They
she's
really did.
she's so mad about it. Like where are you on the Leanne versus Alexander thing? Who are you with?
I don't know. I've not really like I don't feel like I have much of an affinity with either of them. I
Okay.
find Alexander I've warmed to him, to be fair. He's very sweet. When he first joined and on the round table where he was going at it with Leanne, I couldn't stop thinking about how every time he speaks he sounds like ChatGPT. Now, honestly, tonight, listen to like his phrases and the stuff that he responds to. He's like, "I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I want to." I'm like, he is so ChatGPT coded. It really makes me laugh. I was a little bit wary of him when he first came in because I didn't really get him, but now I just think he's a bit like goofy and he's quite.
Yeah.
Leanne, I think the cracks are starting to show for her a little bit. Like I feel as though she's started to take things very personally, like that whole thing with her and Leon as well. She's like, Leon doesn't like me anymore. That means he must be a traitor. It's like, why is it all about you? Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know. I think they were very evenly matched on that round table. Like they both gave it as good as each other.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how that one pans out.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny what you say about Leanne thinking I've said this on the podcast a couple of times now, but she's got this sort of main character energy.
He
So
really does. He really
um
does.
I think we see a little bit more of that from a couple of people in this episode actually.
Yeah.
Uh
Frankie.
well,
Oh,
yes.
so yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Frankie is hilarious, I think now. I've suddenly like become a little bit obsessed with her. But um so these three are speculating about whether or not there's going to be a recruitment or a murder. And Joe realizes, like, he's obviously watched the show, so he's kind of saying, well, if there was a recruitment, it probably would have been like a blackmail, an ultimatum. Uh, but his reasoning isn't, he's got a funny reasoning for it. It's not because he thinks, oh, there's one traitor left, so they must have had to recruit. It's because he just says, well, none of us faithful are going to want to join the traitors. So they're going to have to force one of us to do it because none of us would accept. And it's just so funny that I think like, why are none of you willing to like say that you want to be a trick. I don't know. It's just
Oh.
they're so faithful through and through. We've actually kind of got a voice message from a listener, kind of connected to this a little bit later on, so we'll come back to that. Um, but anyway, we've got Leon, Mina, and Freddie. They arrive next. Again, we get a little bit of Mina talking about her motivation, why she's doing the game. She talks about her husband and her little girl, who she mentioned in the last episode. And Leon talks with Alexander about how, sorry, how they sort of talk about um, the fact that they were the only two who sort of were in the death match and they've survived now. Leanne gets really paranoid about this. She's like, why is Leon not talking to me anymore? Why is he talking to Alexander? And she's sort of, I don't think she's appreciating, like, well, they've got a little bond now. They were both in that mission together, so they've got quite a lot to talk about. But she's really bothered by Leon not sitting with her, and she thinks they've drifted apart. It becomes quite a big deal as the episode goes on.
It really does. That's what I was talking about earlier. Like she took it so personally. I don't know whether it's because she's lost like Tyler and Livy and like the rest of their little.
Yeah,
I also think that um when Freddie sort of called that lot out for being a gang, Leon seemed to be quite upset by that. So I don't
yeah,
think he wants to be associated with being part of like a clique. So
yeah,
maybe that's why he's sort of pulled away. I mean, he is like 40, like he's not really that cool to be in a clique, is it? But I feel like he's a bit cooler than that. I like Leon. I've got a lot of time for him.
yeah.
He's
That's such a good point. Yeah, he was really bothered by being seen as like only belonging to one group. So I think you're right. He's actively
he's
like
probably
distanced
just trying to
himself.
like, make a bit more effort with everyone else because I think that probably would make him a bit vulnerable if he was seen to just be like siding with this one
Yeah.
faction all the time. So I can understand why he's done it, but I don't really understand why Leanne can't see that. But I think it's because of her main character syndrome.
Yeah. Yes. Next group to arrive then are Francesca, Charlotte, and Alex. Obviously, Charlotte is now, it's her first day as a traitor, so she's going to have to act. She has to do her best job at just remaining the way she's always been, I guess. She's trying to listen to all the different conversations. Alex seems pretty savvy about recruitment. He's talking about different types of recruitment. He's like, well, you've got seduction and you've got the ultimatum. Freddie, on the other hand, is like none the wiser. He's like, oh, is that how it works? Oh, okay. Like, Fred, bless Freddie, he doesn't really know what's going on. And Mina's quite impressed with Charlotte. She thinks her performance so far is pretty good. And she says this version of the sisterhood might be her best version yet. We shall see. I hope that this doesn't come back to bite Mina. Um, and then Mina like channels Linda from Beyond the Grave because there's this moment where she goes, "Oh God, who's not going to come?" And it just so reminds me of Linda being like, "Who the hell is not going to come back?" Obviously, Mina has toned it down by a
Oh my
thousand,
God.
but it was like just reminded me of Linda's lovely little line. So thanks, Mina, for that. Next, then, well, the only people left to possibly arrive are Jake, Anna, and Lisa. That's not really a surprise to us. Lisa arrives next, followed by Jake, which means that Anna is gone. That was my prediction in the previous episode of the pod. I said, Anna, it's time to go. And so, yeah, we get our flashback to the turret last night. The traitors think that Anna, she's had her time. They kind of just need to get her murder over and done with. It was sort of a long time coming. And they also think it's not going to bring any heat back to Mina. They think no one's, even though Anna voted for her last night, probably no one's going to immediately link Mina to that. It's too obvious. It's a bit of a risk, but we shall see if it pays out. We've got Anna getting her letter. And she, Anna is another main character type of person. She says, "Oh, I've been dealt I've been dealt a really rough hand throughout this game." I'm like, "No, you haven't." Like,
I thought that as well. You know when they'd be like, "Oh, poor Anna, she's been through so much." I was like, "Has she? She's not really." Has she, like she got recruited, she said no. She chose not to tell anyone about it, which I thought was really weird. And yeah, she's not it's not like anything awful's happened to her. Do you know what I mean? I don't really know where that came from.
no, she's very obsessed with the idea that she's been the number one target throughout the entire game, and she truly has not. But yeah, I thought the worst thing that happened to you was that you turned down recruitment. You could have just accepted it. And even even at that, you still survived beyond it. Like it just she makes me laugh so much. And she says she's devastated because she loves this game, which is weird because she has mostly cried about it and been like really paranoid. But and she also still thinks it's Mina. I mean, I
She
guess no one's around
completely
to hear it,
relaxed.
but
Yeah.
so we are back to breakfast then. Everyone's pretty glum. Anna's gone. And Jake realizes, well, it's kind of obvious it's probably going to happen. Um, Leanne, on the other hand, is like, I can't believe they've killed Anna. And I thought,
Hmm.
really? You can't believe it? Like, I think everyone thought that.
Yeah.
Claudia arrives in an epic skirt. She looks amazing. Her hair is extra shiny today. Takes
Her
Anna's portrait
styling
down.
has been on point this season, I feel
So good. Yes. It's a lady called Sinead McKeefrey, I think. That's her stylist. I obviously follow her on Instagram, so she
like.
always, after every episode, she posts little pictures of Claudia's looks. But yeah, she's amazing, isn't she?
Yeah, she is.
She gives them a clue about what the mission is going to be today. She says a warning, it will not be child's play. Off she goes. That I'm worried the skirt's going to catch fire because it sort of trails
It
very close to the fireplace. So I was a bit worried for a moment, but she's okay.
looked flammable as well. It really did.
Yes, absolutely. We get some post-breakfast chats around the castle then. Leanne and Leon here, this is where they go for their little quiet chat, and Leanne's telling him he's behaving differently. She gets really upset about it, and he tries to reassure her. But yeah, he says in his interview clip that he has taken a bit of a step back. He says he doesn't know who to trust. He's worried that the people he's been really close to could be traitors, so he's suspecting everybody now. Joe and Jake arrive to join them, and Joe tells Leon, some people are a bit suspicious of you because you were in the death match with Alexander, and we think it's one of you. Leanne confides in Joe that she says she doesn't trust Leon now because of how he's changed. So even though she's upset about it, she also thinks he could be a traitor. I can't
She's all
quite.
over the place. She's lost her head. She actually has. That's what I mean. I think she's really starting to crack up, I
Yeah,
think.
I think so. We get a little bit in the kitchen. So we've got Lisa, she's with Alex and Mina. Alexander joins a little bit later. And Lisa recognizes that, yeah, Anna was murdered, and maybe that raises a question over Mina. But then she sort of dismisses it, and she's like, nah, that's too obvious. Mina, you're fine. And Lisa says, well, there are four other people that Anna accused over the past. Oh, hi, Kat.
Mhm.
People just listening will have no idea, but if you're watching on YouTube, a cat just appeared behind Sophie. I have cats and they are firmly locked in other rooms because I do not trust them during the recording of the podcast ever. So they are away elsewhere. Oh, now I'm going to be so distracted by the cat. I have to.
You
Okay.
want me to put her
No, no,
upstairs?
no, no. It's my obsession. It's my issue. Yeah, Lisa is saying that Anna had named four other people over the past 2 days. Which just makes me laugh. I'm like, so Anna was just constantly naming people then.
Yeah, but also
Um,
like that can't have been aired. She's
yeah,
obviously just naming so many people. They're like not relevant, not relevant, not relevant.
yeah, I didn't see any of that.
I didn't.
And those four people were Lisa herself, Alex, Dan, Linda. Obviously, Dan and Linda are gone now. And Lisa's like trying to deduce something. She's like, well, she's sort of saying, well, one of the people that Anna named is going to be a suspect now. I don't, I don't think it ever comes to anything, but Lisa's paranoid. She's basically like, I think I'm in the firing line because Anna was suspicious of me and now Anna's gone. Um, but I just sort of think, Lisa, no one suspects you anymore. Like after the whole priest coming out, you're fine. You really don't need. No one thinks you're a traitor. Calm down.
She's so sweet. I did
She
think it
she
was weird
is.
though. You know when they had that conversation and then they were in the hallway, it was her and Alex.
Yeah, yeah.
She just gave Alex a hug. She was like, I just want you to know I love you. Or Alex, he didn't know what to do. He was like, and he didn't say it back. I was like, this is so awkward. He was just patting her on the back. He was like, okay. It
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite a weird moment though, because
was such a
Lisa,
weird interaction.
like it's nice. It is sweet that she's saying that. It's also quite weird that she said this really cryptic thing to him. She was like, I'll only vote for you tonight if I have to. And I think Alex was like, "Mm, what do you mean if you have to?" So I think it doesn't matter because spoiler for the end of the episode, Alex is gone, but I thought she
Yeah, but
almost made
if
herself
we had
look like a traitor
stayed,
or something.
yeah, I agree. I agree. I thought that was a bit weird.
Yeah,
Um,
I just think she shouldn't have. She was obviously, I think she saw what was coming, so she was like, maybe I'm gonna have to vote you out, and I'm really sorry, it's not personal, but I just think she
I
said
think
it in
that's
such a
probably
strange
what
way.
it does make me laugh how, and I mean, it must be really intense in there because you're just like they're the only people you see apart from like the sound people who are clipping your mics on, like my friend Luke. But they're the only people you see. You must like they're not in there for that long, I guess, but you must form really close friendships. But it does
Yeah,
make me laugh how like it is literally as though people are gonna be killed in the night and they're dead and gone. Like, oh my God, you know, in the episode before when they were also, why the hell did I even think that the producers would have actually buried someone alive? Because you know when they were digging, when Frankie got the wrong grave and they were digging as if like their lives depended on it, I was like, hold on a sec. Have they actually like buried someone alive? Because I'm pretty sure that's like a little bit far, even for traitors. And then when they found it was the other one, and it was just this like polystyrene coffin, I was like, okay, that makes sense. But like the intensity of that was crazy. It's like as if, and like when Anna came out of hers, as if she was actually like on death's door. It was
yeah,
seriously, I like it.
yes. I did talk a lot about this in the other episode that literally came out hours ago, so you wouldn't have heard it yet. But yeah, it was hilarious how they have bought into it so much, and yeah, they really were acting as if like Anna had been buried in a coffin all night long.
I
Um,
know she'd probably been in there for like 10 minutes.
exactly, exactly. Um, so yeah, we have that sort of funny conversation between Lisa and Alex. There's also a moment where Alex says he's doing his interview and he says, "I'm quite opinionated. I find it hard to keep my gob shut." And I thought, really? We've barely heard you in this whole show.
So true. I feel like this is the only episode where he really like had any airtime.
Yeah, and I get that like a lot of that's down to editing. They've chosen not to show
Yeah,
us a lot of Alex, but they if he really was that opinionated and talked a
it
lot,
would have so.
they wouldn't
Yeah.
have had much choice but to show him be an important player in the game. So I think he's maybe like over egging things a little bit there when he describes himself. Next, we've got Charlotte. She's outside with Frankie and Freddie. They're talking about Leon and Alexander again. They were the only two left in the death match. Is one of them a traitor? Freddie thinks it's Leon. He just goes for it. He says it's because of the way that he got out of the coffin yesterday and how it felt staged. And I thought, that's because it was staged, Freddie. They weren't buried for real. It was all fake, you know. Like I just think it's so funny. They're like, he wasn't acting like he'd been buried alive all night because he wasn't. Um,
But
so
also, they said that about Alexander when they got Alexander off the
yes,
boat. They were like, "You're not stressed enough." And then suddenly that whole narrative's like jumped to Leon, and they were saying that Alexander did have a correct reaction to being
yeah,
buried alive on a boat for like all night. So I don't really know. I think they're just clutching at straws.
yeah, you're right. Charlotte's loving this whole thing because she's in the know now. She's playing the game from a different perspective. She thinks this is actually great fun. They talk a bit about how Alex had voted for Leanne last night, and that felt quite strange. And Frankie thinks he could be the master traitor, and he thinks Alex looks quite uncomfortable sometimes. Um, Meanwhile, Frankie says she definitely doesn't think Charlotte's a traitor, and if she is, she'll eat her shoes. And I thought, no, not the snakeskin slingbacks from episode 7, Frankie. Don't you eat those shoes. Uh, and I just had a little thought here that I've said this on the podcast before, but I think being a recruited traitor is the best position to be in. Like it's so beneficial.
I literally wrote in my notes the exact same thing. You've already gained everyone's trust. She, especially sort of a player like Charlotte, who has already actually had tr like heat on her
Mhm.
throughout the series before. She's sort of gained everyone's trust now. No one's looking at her, and she now has a perfect opportunity to come in, and then she can like, if she wants to, fake implicate her other traitor, cement herself as a faithful, and then do you know what I mean? Like it's an ideal situation to come in as a recruited traitor. I think you're so right.
Yeah, definitely. Such an advantage. We've got Alex, Leanne, Charlotte, and Mina. They're discussing like also how Alex voted for Leanne last night. I think they just mentioned it briefly, but it must be important if they're including it. And they all also seem a bit suspicious of Freddie. He,
What
he,
else is
he
new? He's been
exactly.
poor old Freddie. I
Poor
don't
Freddie.
really know where his like suspicions have all come from. It's like one interaction he had with Maya like ages ago, but she's the only person that saw that, so I don't really know.
I think it's because I'm guessing, but I think it's because Freddie is so sort of like carefree and like a bit naive about everything. Like,
Mm.
and that is just genuine naivety. And he didn't know who Columbo was, and he didn't this morning he didn't understand the different types of recruitment. But I think they all read that as, oh, he's so relaxed, he must be a traitor. Like, why isn't he worried and anxious all the time
Do
or
you think it's
something?
because he is a similar sort of character? I feel like his personality and his vibe is kind of similar to Harry from last year.
Yeah, yeah. A
So
few people have mentioned.
maybe they're sort of drawing similarities on that. But
Yeah,
uh,
that's a
yeah.
good point. Maybe that is a sort of subconscious thing at play. Yeah, they've seen the show. Harry's the last big traitor in their mind. Yeah, maybe they just think, well, who's like that here? Freddy's the closest. That makes
Mm.
sense. Yeah. Um, but this whole time, Mina, she's pretty happy that the four names that are circulating right now seem to be Alex, Freddie as always, Alexander, and Leon. None of them her, and all of them men. And I've been saying that I think this is part of Mina's plan. I think she deliberately chose another woman to be a traitor. I think she thinks that best way for her to keep safe is for the only people to be banished as traitors to be women, so that everybody just assumes the next one's a man, and that's how she's trying to protect herself, even though she keeps saying it's because of the sisterhood. I don't know if I believe it's because of the sisterhood. Um,
About that. That's actually a really good point.
I may be completely wrong. Maybe Mina is not thinking that at all, and I'm just a
I
cynical,
feel
horrible
as
person.
though we don't know much about her strategy. Like she seems to be playing her cards quite close to her chest, like even in the talking heads, like
Hmm.
never really revealed any sort of strategy that she has in terms of like what you just said, like making the gender split different or whatever. Like so I feel like she has more going on than we know.
Yeah,
And it might
I agree that she often in the interviews she kind of is always maintaining the idea that she wants traitors that she can take to the end, and she wanted to protect Linda as much as she could. And I wonder if underneath the surface that's not really true, and she's actually much more devious than she's letting on. Um, whatever what I mean, it's obviously working so far. It's, we get to the end of episode 8, and she's still there. She didn't, again, spoiler for the roundtable, she doesn't get
Mm.
any votes tonight, so
No, she
she's doing
didn't.
well.
She is. She'd only had like, has she had any actual chalkboard votes on the round table? I don't think she has.
She had
What?
one from Anna in the last episode, and that
Yeah,
was it.
that's
Anna, who
crazy.
spelt her name utterly wrongly.
I know. I hope they do at the end of this series, like some meme page did like a compilation of all the different like name misspells at the end
Yeah,
of that. So I hope they do the same thing again this year. Although I feel like last year there was way more.
yeah, yeah. I think there is an actual Instagram page called Traitors Can't Spell, and
Really? Oh, I need to look at
I've just started following it. So it's whoever's running that is putting up pictures of all the wild
okay.
spellings. So.
I must go and have a look at
It's time for the mission today then. Claudia meets them outside. She tells them it's going to be all about communication and teamwork. Five will go into the woods, and the others will stay in the castle. But only the people who go into the woods will have the chance of winning a shield. So they all get together, and they basically decide to sort of do, like, I guess the nice thing, which is, well, all the people who've already had shields, let's just keep them in the castle. And that is Mina, Leanne, Charlotte, Lisa, Leon, and Alex. It's not ideal that two of them are traitors. I think that maybe the traitors should have tried to get one of them in the woods to see what the other group were doing, but maybe they thought that would look too obvious. So
it.
they play it as faithfuls. I did wonder, and it ends up becoming kind of important. The way Claudia described it, I thought, does that mean all five people can get shields, or is it just one of them? It ends up it's just one of them, but. Um, we'll talk about how the shield plays out, I guess. I think it's going to be really important.
I think so too.
Claudia introduces everyone to Martha, the creepiest doll ever. It sings songs backwards, and she tells them that in the woods is a doll's house full of more creepy dolls singing nursery rhymes backwards. And it sounds a bit complicated. I mean, it kind of is complicated. The players have to listen to the dolls, then phone the castle and imitate the sound of one of the dolls, and then the people in the castle have to imitate it and sing it into a gramophone. Well, a pretend gramophone, and then play it backwards. And if they recognize the reverse version, then they'll realize what nursery rhyme it is, and it's wild. Basically, there will be four correct dolls, and it could add up to £10,000 to the prize. Um, Sophie, I have two questions. A, have you ever had to sing backwards?
No, still fine.
There is still time. And B, you're a musician. Do you think you would be quite good at this task?
Um, yeah, I was actually watching it with my bandmates yesterday, and we all agreed that some of them we maybe wouldn't have to bring. You could kind
Hmm.
of just tell from the melody, but some of them I had no idea. So I think the ones that are like a really obvious, really famous one, I could probably, but the others like a bit more off the beaten track nursery rhymes, like London Bridge is falling down. I don't think I remember the melody of that one good enough. But I
Okay.
also think that I say that, but then if I was in the situation, I was under pressure, I definitely wouldn't be able to. I think so.
Um, so we've got Martha, who Martha the doll leads the way to the cabin. I spoke about her as if she was an actual player there. I was
I
like, so
know. I
we've
was
got
like, who's
Martha.
mother? What? Okay, that makes sense.
And then I realized, oh no, it's just the doll, and I was making a really weird note about that. Yes, it's very like horror film, it's creepy. And Claudia also tells them that one of the dolls has a clue to the whereabouts of the shield. So it does sound like only one of them will be able to win it. Um, I'll sort of go over like my highlights of the mission rather than every single bit of the way because that could get quite tedious. So one of the dolls just screams, "You're going to die soon," which is quite terrifying. One of them says, "Have you seen my mummy?" And we get Frankie just going, "Shut up! I haven't seen your mummy."
That
Um,
was good.
I just found this challenge nut like it was quite funny. It's wild. It's nuts.
I thought it was good. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit of a sucker for like forwarding through the challenges because some of them are a bit like, "Mm." But this one I obviously watched because I was doing this and because I genuinely did enjoy it, mainly because of Claudia's reactions. Claudia was pissing herself. It was so funny. They did sound ridiculous, like all of the
Oh,
contestants. It
yeah,
was really good. Like and when Alexander started doing that opera Chef's Kiss, it was
yeah.
good.
Such good moments. So clippable. Yeah, Claudia saying, "Oh, it's like Eurovision," and telling us that Alexander's single.
That was good
Yeah,
too.
all made me laugh. I think your next single should be called Schnam's Now Beal, which is Three Blind Mice backwards. It really tickled me.
Hell yeah.
So they get some of them right. I think they get the Three Blind Mice, and they get Row, Row, Row Your Boat. One of them is Mary Had a Little Lamb, which they don't get. Um, and in the middle of all this, Jake picks up a doll that mentions the shield being with Bear, and he has spotted the teddy bear outside, so he goes straight to it. He's tearing it apart for the shield. Frankie kind of like notices what he's doing, but doesn't really pause to help him or investigate. It's funny because well, he does find the shield eventually. And I wondered if it was a little bit shady that Jake just went out and did it on his own. I don't really think it is, but I think back to Dan. Remember Dan a couple of episodes? I think
Oh, I
if
love
like
Dan.
I
Justice
let
for Dan. He was my favorite.
yeah, Dan was great, and I think if he had done this, he would have been pun intended ripped apart. I think they would have piled on him for it. But Jake, I think is he's just seen as like a lad and he's quite popular, so nobody really confronts him about it. I just thought it was funny that no one was like, I can't believe you went and got that shield and you didn't even tell us about
But
it.
did they know that he did? Because I was unsure. Like if they knew
Um,
he had the shield at the end.
the in the Jeeps on the way back, he tells Francesca, well, she kind of figures out, she's like, I saw you with the bear, and he says, yeah, I got it. and someone else is in. I think Leon. No, someone else is in the Jeep with them. I have written it down later. So a third person knows for sure that Jake has it, but they just don't confront him about it. They only. Oh, it's Joe. Joe's there, so he knows for sure that Jake has the shield. They just agree they don't want to tell Alexander about it because they. I
They
get
don't
it. Like
trust.
they don't trust him. Jake thinks he might be a traitor, so I don't want a traitor to know that I'm the one with the shield. And Alexander's in a different Jeep going back, so like he's not part of that conversation. Um, yeah, they by the end of the mission they have £7,500 added to the prize, and Claudia gives them that opportunity to declare if they found the shield, but Jake just doesn't say anything. Um,
I think that's kind of smart because that protects the rest of the group.
it does in the end, yeah. Well, we probably will. I guess we don't know what the traitors are going to do, but yeah, it's a good idea, I think. Um, Yeah, they have kind of already covered this, but you're yeah, in the Jeeps, they agree to just that. They agree to not tell everybody who's got it, and it will protect the whole group that way. I also sort of noticed something here. May in the heat of the moment, if I was playing the game, maybe I wouldn't have thought this. I actually thought they didn't really even need to find the shield. They could have just pretended to everybody in the they could have not bothered with that bear, done the mission,
True.
gone back to the
True.
castle and said to everybody, "Oh yeah, one of us found it, but we're not going to tell you." Like, yeah, they could have just faked it, the whole thing.
So true.
Um, we've got on one Jeep, we've got Jake and Alexander and Joe. They don't want to tell Alexander. Freddie and Alexander are in their other Jeep. They're talking about the round table tonight. Alexander thinks that Linda voting for him last time might have been a helpful thing. I don't really know if I believe that. Alexander thinks, well, Linda was a traitor and she voted for me, so that makes it quite unlikely that I'm a traitor. But I don't
Mm.
know. She could have also voted for a fellow traitor. Like that happens sometimes. Um, so Jake and Frankie focus on Alex again, and they're still wondering why he voted for Leanne last night. Why didn't he vote for Linda like almost everybody else did? And Frankie also thinks that Alex has had like a weird trend of votes across the series. She thinks that he always jumps on the bandwagon, and she mentions like Ellen and Tyler. So Alex is definitely gonna come up at round table tonight. He's high on people's lists. We get back to the castle. They again, yep, they outside the five people who've been at the cabin agree they're not going to tell everybody. But Alexander guesses that it's Jake. In his interview, he's like, I think it probably was Jake that found it. Mina asks them about the shield. Frankie just vaguely says, yep, a shield was found, so she's going along with the plan. Leon is talking to Frankie and Charlotte about. He said this earlier, but again, he's saying he just suspects everybody now. That's part of the reason why he's distanced himself from Leanne. In the kitchen, they talk a bit about Linda's vote for Alexander. Does that clear him of suspicion? And then this really, really important moment in the episode comes because Alex just says something really silly and as soon as he said it, I just watching the episode thought, I don't get what that means. Like but then everybody else picks up on it anyway. So Alex says, if you look at Linda's voting pattern, she hasn't thrown a traitor under the bus. And Joe immediately is like, wait, say that again? Like, what do you mean? And because apart from the only other traitor apart from Linda has been Armani. Alex is talking as if there have been like three or four traitors banished. But the way he says, like, she hasn't thrown a traitor under the bus in all of her votes. So, like, how would Alex know if Linda hadn't ever voted for another traitor?
I think that was such an unfortunate misunderstanding because I totally knew what he meant, but as soon as Joe spun it the other way, which it could also have meant, they all jumped on it. I think it
Yeah.
could so like he all he meant by that was that when a traitor has gone out, like Armani or Linda, he hadn't voted for them at that time. That's what I got from that thing that he said.
But wasn't he talking
Um,
about, he was talking about the way Linda had voted. So he was saying, oh, Linda's never voted for another
that's
traitor.
what. Oh my God, it's so confusing. That's what I meant. That's what I meant. So like he, as in like every time a trait went out, so like Armani, they'd never. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, and he is right. It's just funny that there's only one person, Armani. Like Linda obviously she didn't vote for herself. It's
Yeah.
just such a funny point to make about one traitor. So every Joe's like, well, there only has been one traitor apart from Linda. So like that doesn't. It's just yeah. I just think Alex shouldn't have said it, and I think probably even when Alex is saying it, he probably is like, oh, actually, it doesn't make sense, but it's kind of too late.
Yeah, you could kind of see his cogs whirring, being like, I've messed up here. But
Yeah.
it
And
was,
of course, like any little thing like that, people are going to jump on. Joe immediately goes to Jake in the corridor. He's like, oh, we've got another traitor. He's totally slipped up. He's messed up. Frankie walks by. She's like, yeah, defo. And then they tell Leanne. So it's not looking good for Alex going into the round table.
Alex.
So we head in, and as always, we as they're walking into the round table, there's little voiceovers and interview clips. Leanne wants to call out Leon. Alex is worried that he has said the wrong thing. Charlotte can't wait to get rid of people. She's having a great time. So basically, going in, I thought, well, I don't know if Alex is going to go, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to get another traitor tonight. Like nobody's talking about Charlotte or Mina, so I can rest assured it's not going that way. Claudia tells them all that the prize is now £48,500 and says, Faithful, last night you caught a traitor. The question is, can you do it again? And I'm thinking, no, they can't. So, Joe starts off immediately with all of the Alex chat and what Alex said in the kitchen. And Alex, he tries to defend himself. I think he does a really bad job of it. I still don't understand what he thinks he meant. And he claims that Joe didn't let him finish. He's like, you didn't let me finish in the kitchen. And I don't think that's true. I don't think Joe like jumped in and didn't let him finish. I think Alex has just messed up. And now he's had time to think his way out of it, and this is going to be his defense. But yeah, what Alex says is, I tried to write it down, but I couldn't really follow it. He says, what I was trying to say was that when other people potentially gave Linda traitors' names, she cut them down straight away. And I still don't really think this means anything. Um, we've got Mina and Frankie jumping in to also affirm, yeah, Alex, your comment was pretty weird. And then Alex looks to Freddie as a suspect, and he says, oh, Freddie used to talk about being framed all the time in the game, but you've kind of stopped saying that, which annoys Freddie a bit. And Jake asks Alex, why did you not vote for Linda last night? And he's also got this terrible defense. He says, oh, well, I felt sorry for her.
I know. I was like, oh God,
Like, Alex, stop it. You're not making yourself look like a faithful. Uh,
Alex.
Frankie then says that Anna had named Alex as a top suspect, and Frankie's like,
Why is Anna's word gospel, by the way? Like, what is this obsession with Anna? I don't get it.
I don't either. And Frankie is totally bought into Anna's fear. Frankie says Anna spent 2 nights terrified she was going to be murdered. And I'm like, Anna spent every night terrified she was going to be murdered because she was obsessed with it. Um, anyway, Frankie says that everyone who brought up Alex's name is now gone from the game. I think that's probably a bit of an exaggeration. I've never heard anyone talk about Alex.
I
Like,
haven't. I literally just kind of forgot his name until this episode. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah. Um, and then if Alex eventually I think he just kind of gives up a bit and he says, I know what I am, I'm a faithful, and I don't have anything else to say. I'm like, Alex, you can't just say I've not got anything else to say. Like that can't be where you leave it.
Yeah, that was his final word.
Yeah. Um, Lisa steps in a bit and she almost word for word says what she said last time. Where she goes, I find this really hard. I've tried to take my emotions out of it. She says, I've thought about Charlotte. I voted for you at the first round table, and you've grown in confidence a bit. And so for a moment, I thought, uh-oh, are they suddenly going to be looking at Charlotte? And then she
Mhm.
moves on to Mina, and
I
she
know.
goes,
I was like,
from
what?
nowhere. I mean, where is this coming from? She's saying, Mina, you look like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. However, So I was really worried. But then she goes on and she focuses on Leon as well. And I thought, oh, is she just working her way around the table, going around every single person, and they've cut some of it out? So maybe I shouldn't be too worried. Uh, Leanne then takes this chance to come in at Leon. It's so funny because she says, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Leon, you've totally changed towards me. And I thought, is that the elephant in the room? Does anyone else care about this? Like, I don't think that's an elephant in the room. It's yeah, it's the whole sort of like main character thing going on, perhaps. And
Yeah. Okay.
Leon just reiterates what he said already. Like, I'm just looking at everybody. I don't know who to trust. And he says that he trusts Alexander, Alex, and Freddie the least. So at least Leanne's not on that list. And Joe is like, Leon, yeah, I'm kind of suspicious of you, but I'm really paranoid. I don't want to get things wrong again. Charlotte, just before the vote, Charlotte pretends to be a bit suspicious of Leon because of his behavior when they rescued him from the coffin. Obviously, Charlotte knows that this just is all dumb, but she, it's just, it was really annoying to me how everyone is so bothered about Alexander and Lee. You've already said this, Sophie. Like everyone's bothered by how they weren't as dramatic as Anna, pretending that they were buried all night.
I don't know. Maybe
Um,
Anna was just too dramatic, guys. Maybe,
that's maybe the
maybe that's
problem.
the problem.
And also, like if they were in the coffin, obviously they weren't buried all night. They knew they had survived the game. Like, why would they be terrified? Like, they know that they're not the one that was killed. Like, Leon knows that Fozie was killed. And Alexander and Anna, when they left the card game, they were like, well, I'm safe. So, like, why would they wake up in the mission and be like, oh, I thought I was like, they know they're fine. They know they're still in the game. So anyway, it just, it drives me nuts. So, it's time for the vote. Let's go through them. Lisa begins and votes for Leon. Freddie goes for Alex. Alex sort of retaliates and goes for Freddie. Charlotte votes for Leon, and Jake votes for Alex. And it's kind of then just it's a landslide from here on in. Everybody else goes for Alex, Alexander, Mina, Leanne, Leon, Frankie, and Joe. Um, it's funny that Mina kind of read the room. Like, so she voted for Alex because she recognized that probably almost everybody else will, but Charlotte didn't do that. Like Charlotte went for Leon. So either she like read the room a bit wrongly and she predicted wrongly where the votes were going, or she's thinking ahead. She's thinking, well, next time Leon's going to come up, so I'm going to get in there early and look. I don't know. I don't know what her thinking was.
Maybe. I didn't think about that. I just sort of put it down to it being her first round table as a traitor and not really like being as tuned into it as
Hmm.
maybe Nina was. But maybe she does have a strategy. I don't
Maybe.
know.
Yeah.
She might do. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I guess it gives her the chance to, when Alex gets banished, she knows that Alex is going to get banished and he's a faithful, so she can sort of turn around and go, I knew it. I knew he wasn't. I knew he was a faithful. And they all go, oh my God, Charlotte, we should have listened to you. That sort of thing. So Alex is banished and he gives his goodbye speech. He says, I would like to say thank you to everybody. I've had the best time in my life and met the most wonderful people, blah, blah, blah. And reveals, I am a faithful. Off he goes. It's really somber. I think Leon probably knows, oh shit, this is not good for me. My time's up next. Uh, I think he probably realizes he's not gonna get to the end. I could be totally wrong, but I would be worried if I was Leon. Lisa and Frankie are crying. Joe tries to give this weird speech about like, guys, we've just got to carry on. I don't think
So funny.
I don't think they care to hear this right now.
No.
But actually, Charlotte has a moment of our interview here where she says, I couldn't vote for Alex because he was going to get loads of votes and I felt really bad. And I thought that was weird. I was like, just
Yeah.
just do what you need to do. Or I don't know why she said that. It's very strange. So we spread off to have our debrief after the round table. Lisa's gutted about Alex. Obviously, she was really close to him. And she confides,
But she's happy. She told him she loved him.
well, exactly. Yeah, of
At
course.
least she had the ability, knowing that he didn't say it back.
Yes. She confides in Leon and she asks, well, like, who started the whole move on Alex? And Leon says, Francesca.
Mm.
Dramatic moment. And Jake joins. Jake, I don't really understand this conversation actually. Jake joins and says he starts talking about Joe, Charlotte, and Frankie and how they're really close. Yeah, I didn't really understand. I don't know why he was saying this. I don't know if he meant. I don't know if it's because Leon just mentioned Francesca, and so Jake's trying to join the dots and be like, well, if she's a traitor, who's she close to? I don't know if
I
that's what was going on. Oh,
just
the cat
tried the
has.
cat laughing at me.
The
Everyone
cat
who's watching
reappeared.
on the video, the cat just actually jumped on my shoulder, and it was a bit.
They didn't all vote for. They didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. Basically, Jake says he's convinced that Charlotte's a faithful, and he's pretty convinced that Joe's a faithful, and so he's kind of like, well, that leaves Frankie. So it makes me think she's going to come under a bit of suspicion in the next episode.
I
This is
think
just a bit of
so.
foreshadowing. And the thing is, in the kitchen, Jake then tells all of this to Frankie. He goes right to her, and he's like, "Yeah, we're looking at you." And he says he gets the same Linda vibe from her. I I think if he really thinks she might be a traitor, don't tell her this alone when no one is around to witness it, because
I
she
know.
could just, if she's a traitor, surely she's just going to murder him and no one will connect it back to her. So I think he's doing a really silly thing here.
I think he's got a bit too big for his boots ever since he had the suspicion of Linda from the very beginning. I feel like he just now thinks he's a bit invincible.
Probably, yeah. We've got Charlotte, Mina, and Alexander talking. They remind us that the five people who were at the cabin in the mission have this sort of group immunity. So Mina and Charlotte are having to pretend like they are worried about being murdered themselves. And Charlotte's reminding Leanne and Freddie of the same thing. And Freddie just straight up comes out and says he thinks Mina's a traitor. Um, so Charlotte's now got this conundrum, and she says in her interview clip next, she's not going to tell Mina. She's just going to keep this to herself. Maybe she's going to have to use it. I in the last episode of the pod, I sort of predicted this might happen, that Charlotte may well turn on Mina if
I'm
that's the way
feeling
things go.
I wasn't expecting it. But I was kind of like, okay, this could now get interesting here if she is gonna choose to like go down that avenue. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to see how it plays out. My mate was like, I think it's stupid. Like at this stage of the game, they should work together because like safety in numbers. But I was kind of like, if she's got a long riding strategy, I think it's quite good and she should go for it. I don't know if I would have done the same because I don't know if I am like brave enough to do that. She, yeah, I love that for her, that decision. I think it was a good one.
Yeah. I'm torn because on one hand, I feel like loyal to Mina as a great traitor and I want her to win. On the other hand, I think it would make such great TV if Charlotte somehow switches this all around and gets rid of Mina and goes to the end and wins. Like that would be maybe more of the exciting thing for the show.
It would be. It would be like I'm still waiting for that moment like from last year when it was Harry v Paul at the round table.
Yeah, yeah.
Was so good.
So intense.
So I'm waiting for something like that to happen again. Feel
I would,
like on that
yeah.
avenue, maybe.
I would also say historically across this is sort of like not a semi-vague spoiler. I won't name names or seasons. I've watched Traitors Canada and New Zealand and Australia and US, different versions of each. It's incredibly rare for two traitors to win to get two or three traitors. Anytime there's been a traitor win, it's pretty much always one traitor on their own, which also is in the back of my mind and makes me think it's quite just sort of statistically unlikely that Mina and Charlotte will both get to the end and win it together. Obviously, it could happen. I just think that's not really part of the pattern in the traitors that I've seen. So we go to Traitor's Turret for the night, and they think everyone is starting to doubt everyone, but that's kind of a good thing. Mina's like, well, that kind of keeps us safe because even though people are saying our names, they're saying everybody's names. They discuss the shield. They're wondering, like, should we just take a chance? Should we just like take a stab in the dark, try and murder someone from that group, even though we don't know for sure if they've got the shield? Because if that worked and they got lucky, they could then pin the blame on someone in that group, maybe, and say that they were the traitor and they knew exactly who had the shield. So they talk about their options. They've got Joe. They say that he's got good energy and it would knock everyone if he goes, which I think is quite funny. Like, I don't think he's been portrayed in that way in the
That was
episode.
exactly what I thought. Like, Joe has been probably my least favorite character for the whole time because I
Okay.
think he's so like mean to people around him, like unnecessarily. And I really liked Kaz. So like the that interaction, I just thought that he seems like really bad vibes, but I think he's being like pushed that way by the presenters. Like he's being cut that way because everyone seems to really get on with him. Like there's some small clips where they're all just like hanging out together and he seems to be like a big, like well-liked character within the group, but we just haven't seen that side of him at all.
Yeah, I think
It's
so
kind of a
too.
shame for him because a lot of people were hating on him.
Yeah, I think he is a bit of a victim of a bad
I think
edit,
so.
but then, but sometimes you can see that he delivers quite funny lines, just sort of quite maybe sarcastically
He
or
did
quite
one.
muted.
He did one in this episode, which is when I started to like think, oh, okay, maybe I've actually got the wrong end of the stick about him. It was when I can't remember who it was, but they were just like sitting in the drawing room or something, and they were all talking together, and then two of them walked off, and he was like traitors. And I
Yes,
thought it
yeah.
was really funny.
Yes,
Um,
I think he probably does that a lot, just like little
yeah.
subtle funny lines, but they're just not shown as a lot of it. So yeah, he obviously is popular amongst the players. So and me and Charlotte like recognize that, and so they're wondering, does that make him a good person to get rid of? Because it would really bother everyone. They consider Jake and say maybe, yep, he's had his time. People are expecting him to be murdered. Nobody knows why he's still in the game. Maybe he's so good at catching Linda. And then they talk about Lisa. Now, she wasn't in the group who might have had a shield, so they're like, maybe she's just the safer one to go for. They say she's been a bit annoying today, and her murder wouldn't be directly and obviously linked to either Charlotte or Mina. And Charlotte is just, again, she's in full on traitor mode. She's like, yeah, it'd be a direct kill, which Mina's loving. She's like, oh, check
I'm
you.
not Charlotte like going for the headshot. Love that
Yes.
for
So, yeah, Mina's loving Charlotte. I mean, little does she know how sneaky Charlotte might actually be, keeping that information about Freddie bringing up her name, hey? Um, and Charlotte says, then, this is how the episode ends with this little clip of Charlotte. This could be so significant. She says, at some point, we're going to have to give the faithful some blood. It's going to have to be a traitor, and there's no way it's going to be me. And the episode ends. So, let's talk about some sort of predictions and thoughts. Let's start with the short term. Who do you think they are going to choose to murder?
Oh, I don't know. I think that they'll choose Lisa because it's safe,
Okay.
but that's what my gut is saying. But there's part of me that thinks they might have chosen Jake, and that would be really interesting. Because
Yeah.
what happens if you try to be murdered but you're shielded? Do you get told you would try to be murdered, or just nothing happens?
I think they've done it in different ways in different versions of the show. Sometimes I think they bring the player into like the room with the letter, and they very explicitly tell them you've been the traitors have tried to murder you, but you're safe. So that person knows exactly what's happened, and the next day they can choose to tell everybody that. Sometimes they don't tell them; they just let them all arrive and let them sort of figure it all out for themselves. I th I think I think that's what they would do. I'm with you. I think that Lisa's the sort of obvious choice, but I'm gonna, for the sake of the excitement of it, I'm gonna bet that they're gonna go for Jake, and it's gonna cause like a bit of chaos because it would be more exciting to watch. So I think if they go for Jake, the producers just won't tell Jake that. I think they'll just let them all arrive. I think Claudia might come back and tell the traitors your murder's failed or so. I don't know. Um,
Maybe. And then just wait to see their reactions at breakfast when he walks in.
Yeah, I think that's more fun
That
that
would
the
be
traitors
amazing.
don't know, and Jake is the last person to walk in, and Mina and Charlotte have to suddenly like go, oh shit.
Compose themselves. Yeah.
Um, I reckon that's what would make better TV, maybe. What about banishment? Any predictions who's going to get banished next?
I'm not sure. I think based on what we went on in last night's episode, maybe Frankie, because of what was being said after the round table. But as we know, like stuff can swing so quickly, like
Yeah,
within an episode. So that's just based on what's happened, like today.
yeah. I
I don't
think
know.
yeah,
What do you-
Frankie's definitely up for a bit of a spotlight, and several players have been saying things like, "Oh, I need to start looking at who I'm close to." And I think Frankie's seen as like friendly, and everyone gets on with her, and she's probably a faith. So I think it's natural that maybe now's the time that people do go, "Hey, we've never ever questioned you." So I'm wondering, is that enough to get her banished already? I'm gonna just throw out a different name and say things are gonna swing back around to Alexander, and it'll
Mm,
and like Leon will probably still have a lot of attention to, but Alexander seems to be the one that they're least close to. He was part of the whole deathmatch thing. He's probably not escaped suspicion. And actually, here's what I really think. This is like a very detailed prediction, but if Charlotte and Mina try and murder Jake and it doesn't work, remember, of course, Jake's group pretty much knew he had the shield except Alexander. Alexander's the one person in that group that didn't know. So I think they'll pin it on Alexander. Like Jake will be like, it was him. I didn't tell him I had the shield and he tried to get me. So I'm worried that Alexander's gonna
true. I think
suddenly.
that's a really good prediction, actually. I mean,
Um,
obviously, there's always the chance that there'll be a bit more narrative from Freddie about Mina, but I
that's
think that
true.
will come later on.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Uh,
think Alexander's a good shout.
that's what I would. That's my official bet. That's my official prediction.
Okay.
In terms of the long game, do you think is Charlotte going to turn on Mina? Are they just messing with us? Is Mina actually totally fine and she's going to win and she's had it since day one? Where's what's happening with the traitors, do you think?
I think it's going to be very interesting. And I think that Charlotte, from what I said earlier, like I think she went in with the Welsh accent thing. She wanted to be devious. She wanted to be a traitor, I think, right from the very beginning. So I think she's going to take it and run with it, and I
Okay.
think that she might topple our queen. Which is a shame because I love Mina, and you can cut this out if it's inappropriate to say, but by the size of that rock on Charlotte's finger, she doesn't need the money. No, I do love Mina, and I think like she keeps talking about her family and her little girl, and I think she deserves to win. She's so sweet, but I do think Charlotte might have the game, so I don't know.
Mm, I I can't call it. I can see either thing happening. I can see I definitely think a traitor's going to win, and yeah, that's my only prediction. It's a trait. One of those two will win, I think. I don't think it's going to be any other recruit later. I think it's Charlotte or Mina. I think they're going to keep banishing faithful to the end now.
I think so.
Um, so, actually, I've got there's something else I wanted to ask you about, and it is there's a celebrity version of The Traitors that's going to be filming this year, and I think released, broadcast this year as well. And I've been told another little fun fact about you, Sophie, that because you are a lover of pop culture, on your last tour, you had the X Factor theme as your entrance music, and your
I did.
backstage rider consisted of, amongst other things, a photo of Ant and Dec. So I think you're probably very much looking forward to Celebrity Traitors. Apart from Ant and Dec, well, first of all, would you like to see Ant and Dec on the Traitors?
I'd love them to go in like as a pair, like the sisters,
Yeah.
um, and then one of them like have to turn on each other. I
Okay.
think that would be great telly.
Uh, any other celebrities you would like to see on Celebrity Traitors?
Katie Hopkins.
That someone else mentioned that to me as well. That's
That
really
would be
funny.
funny. Or maybe like who else could be good? I think Alison Hammond would be so good, but
Oh, of
as a
course.
traitor, because everyone loves her so much, she'd be really good. I don't know. There's loads of people who'd be good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like people who've been good on other reality TV that I've seen. I loved Colleen Rooney so much on I'm a Celeb.
Oh, yeah.
I'd
Okay.
like her. I think she'd be good as a faithful.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. Those
Yes.
I'd like to see those guys.
Okay. Good
Because
shouts.
she's Wagatha as well. Like she would.
Exactly.
Oh my God! Imagine if you got Becky Vardy and Colleen Rooney. I don't think they'd say yes to that, but that would be amazing TV. I would pay to watch that.
Yeah, it would be very clever casting. Um, and I worry that Ant and Dec maybe feel a bit too ITV to do a BBC show, but I think there could be a bit of an X Factor connection. Um, I'll probably cut this out of the podcast, but someone I know through T because I work in TV has sort of heavily implied that Danny Minogue is going to be on the show. So she's
Oh,
obviously like an X Factor judge, and I guess it makes sense because she does I Kissed a Boy and I Kissed a Girl on the BBC, so she's already got a BBC connection. So apparently she's in.
interesting.
Um, we've got some messages from listeners that I'm going to go through. Firstly, we've had a couple of donations. I woke up to these this morning, which is really, really nice. We've got one from Adam who sent in a donation on the coffee page. He says, "Hey Matthew, thank you for the awesome Traitors podcast. I've listened to every single one since US season one. That was literally the first thing that I podcasted about. Love the humor and the deep dive recaps. The most recent one with Chris was one of the funniest ever. Yes, if the most recent episode, I just laugh through half of it. Chris is a stand-up comedian, so he just makes me laugh all the time. And Adam says, please, please do more accents. Your Australian one cracks me up. So, to all the haters who don't like my fake accents, thank you, Adam. There are no haters. I just made that up. And Chris, thank you very much, Adam, for your donation. Chris also sent in a donation, which is really kind, and he said, always incredibly impressed at the quality of the discussion on the show, especially with how ridiculously fast you managed to put it out. Thanks, Chris. And I try my best. Traitors season in January is quite insane for my life, but I'm trying to do it as fast as I can. We've also got a voice message from Chris. So I'm going to play that right now.
Hi, Matthew, and whoever your super charming and insightful guest is for today. I was really curious to get your take on something that I think happens like a lot on the Traitors, but I'm noticing it coming out a lot more on this season of the UK. Anyway, it's this tendency of the faithfuls to think that being a faithful makes you like a morally good person, and being a traitor makes you a morally bad person. I think obviously the show is kind of designed for that dynamic to be part of the drama and the theatrics of it all, but it feels like they're really buying into it this time around. Like, I think we see it with people starting to feel like, it looks like it anyway, really comfortable being quite personal about people they suspect are traitors. Because, like, of course, if someone's a bad person, then you can justifiably criticize them or even ostracize them, like kind of happened with Kaz. And if someone gets accused of being a traitor, we're seeing really, really emotional and defensive reactions. And I wonder whether it's because that feels to them equivalent to being accused of being a bad person. It sort of feels vaguely related to the phenomenon of people being targeted because they're different, which I think we all know happens a lot, like obviously with race and queerness and stuff, but also people who just seem a bit different socially, which, like, as a neurodivergent person, that makes me slightly uncomfortable. And I'm not sure what you actually are meant to do if you're different, whether you're supposed to hide it or just kind of lean into it. I guess the crux of it is, do you think the moralizing about being faithful and traitor actually helps anyone? Like, is there any benefit to it, or is it just kind of giving people a pass to make things personal instead of purely about the game? Anyway, love the show. Bye.
Okay.
Oh, how
Um,
interesting. I actually read in an article, this is kind of related, kind of not, but I read an article that my friend told me about yesterday that apparently they did a poll. I can't actually don't know where it was, so I can't quote it directly, but there was a poll and you were polled whether you were more likely to vote traitor, to want to be a traitor or a faithful, and whether you're more likely to vote Tory or Labour. And
yeah.
apparently people there was a correlation between people saying they'd rather play as a faithful and voting for Labour and people saying they'd rather play as a traitor and voting for Conservative, um, which
Yeah.
is kind of unrelated but interesting. But I think with the moral um, aspect of that, I do agree. Like, I think people have been taking it very personally this time around, whether when people are like I don't know, suggested to be a traitor, like the reactions have been so emotional and intense, and I do think that it seems to have sort of transcended gameplay and gone into something that's a lot more sort of like about society, and I think so interesting. And I do agree, like what he was saying about people being ostracized because they're different, or like, and especially with Dan and stuff. I was a big fan of Dan, and I guess I can't actually remember her name now, but the person who was voted out very at the very beginning of this season, like the first person to go. What was her name?
Oh my goodness. Was it
Yin?
El? There was Ellen, but there was someone before her.
I think her name was Yin.
Oh yeah. Oh, she was murdered. Yeah, Ian was
Yeah,
murdered.
yeah, sorry, that's what I meant as well. Because I think they murder the people at the beginning, the traitors murder the people who they think are going to be like all too clever or
Yeah.
too, which tends to be like maybe someone who is neurodivergent or like presenting a little bit differently to the rest of the group in terms of
Hmm.
their gameplay. I think it would be really cool at one point to do like a Traitors All Stars
Yeah.
made of people who are like voted out before they get a chance to play the game because I think they will often be the most interesting game players
Hmm.
a lot of the
Yeah.
time. Because like, do you remember that guy? What was his name? Aubrey, the first
Yes.
person to be murdered in the last season. He
Yeah.
looked so interesting. I would have liked to see him, but he didn't get a chance.
Yeah. It's so funny you mentioned Aubrey. I was thinking about him just recently because we've had these characters like Diane last series or Linda this series, these like really sort of campy
Mm.
people that stand out for great reasons and they inspire like 1,000 memes. And I thought they need someone like that again next. Like when they're cast in the next season, they're going to have to try and find. Usually it's like a slightly older person. And I thought, I wonder if they'll go for like an older man who's a bit quirky. And I thought that Aubrey would have. Yeah, Aubrey could have been that person, but he left so early we didn't get to
And
see
he
it from
literally
him.
got like 10 minutes of episode and then he had to go. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah. And that guy who didn't make it out of the cage, what was his name? Jack?
Oh, yes, Jack.
Like, I think all the people who didn't get a chance to actually play, they could bring them back at one point. That would be cool.
Yeah. I know that your story about the article about the poll is not your lie because I've seen that as well. That
Oh, have
this
you?
about what way you would vote politically.
Yeah, it's
Very,
interesting,
very
right?
funny, very interesting. Also very worrying for me. Like I would so much rather play this game as a traitor, and that does not
Same. I was
represent
like,
me
what does that
politically.
say about me? Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I agree with what you said and what Chris said in his message. I think that, yeah. I don't think it's exclusive to this season. I think across the different versions of traitors I've seen, players do especially as the further the game goes on, they so buy into the narrative that a faithful's an honest person with integrity and a traitor's an evil, bad person, and they really believe it as if it's not just a game. The I think the most recent or the US season two is a great example of that. It's all sort of reality stars and celebrities, but they so buy into desperately want to be faithful because they think it proves that they're a good person outside of the show. It's wild. This is a wee bit of a spoiler, so skip ahead 20 seconds if you don't want it. There's a player in US season two who's asked to be recruited and they turn it down because they're like, no, I couldn't possibly. Like, I want to win the game in the right way. I'm a good person. I'm a
That's
faithful
what
through and through.
happened to Anna.
Well, yeah, Anna. I mean,
Yeah.
I can kind of under. At least I think Anna refused it because she also recognized, oh, they're only recruiting me because they want to just banish me tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
so I can kind of forgive her for that. But yeah, I think she also was like, I would never be a traitor. They're the awful, evil people. They're out to get like. Yeah, people definitely buy into it as if it's. I mean, it's obviously part of like not to get too much into like language and semantics, but it's like the word faithful has like really positive, pious connotations, and then the word traitor is just inherently like a negative word. So people
Yeah.
just so believe that that means something about you as a person, and forget like oh, we just all arrived at this game and we're just given a role. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
One, I guess Chris was also asking like, is that should you play into that? Like, is that useful for the game? I mean, that's a whole other discussion. It's a really interesting discussion. One final thing I would say about it is what I think people forget is being a faithful in this game also involves screwing people over. Like the faithful, you still vote out someone every night at round table,
It's true.
and you're still trying to get you're as a faithful, you're still trying to stop traitors from winning money for no reason. Like the traitors are just ordinary people like you who've come along to play a game and they want to win money for their family or whatever. And you're like actively trying to stop them from getting that because you want it for yourself. Like that, you're not really any better than the traitors.
So true. I was thinking this episode actually, like, I think there's obviously most of the narrative that goes on about traitors is like the strategy of the traitors and like what's the traitor strategy to, but like, what is the strategy of a faithful? Because like you have to be well liked enough to not be murdered straight away.
Yeah.
You have to do enough amount of like implicating people early on so people keep you safe so that you're not gonna be voted out and implicate the real person. Like there's so much stuff that there's so much more stuff that you have to think about, I think, as a faithful. Because like what makes a faithful that can stay right to the end as opposed to someone who just gets voted out midway through? Like
hmm
what's the difference in the gameplay, or is it just luck? What do you think?
You're right. It's so difficult because as a faithful, you're also
Way
contending
more of you
with
as well. You're way more likely you're gonna get voted out.
yeah, there's more chances for you to leave because you can be murdered. Like traitors can't be murdered. They're never going to leave the game that way. So yeah, as a faithful, you don't just have to worry about being banished. You have to worry that the traitors don't just want you out because you're too obviously faithful or you're too good at catching traitors or you're too popular. But you've got all these other worries to consume you and you have to think about
Hmm.
yeah, you have to think about so many different things
There's
to
so much
stay in the
more to
game.
think about, I think.
Yeah, it's tough. And yeah, and you're right. Maybe it does. Actually, I think almost every series you probably end up with people at the end who are just there through luck. Like they've just luckily got to the end because they didn't really stand out in any particular way. They didn't have a reason to be murdered, and so they've not like necessarily played the game amazingly. They just escaped everybody's attention for a long time, and they just happened to end up at the end. So yeah, I think luck really is often a big part of it for some players.
Which faithfuls do you think are going to be in the final?
Uh, great question. I think Leanne will probably make it to the end. Um, I think the she's had a little bit of heat on her now, so that the traitors won't want to murder her. But I don't think she's got enough heat that she'll actually get banished. So I think Leanne's there for the long run. Um, maybe maybe Frankie if in the next episode she doesn't get too much attention and gets banished, so she might make it all the way to maybe Freddie. I
I
know
was
I
going to
know
say
people are
Freddie.
they've been accusing him for a long time, but he never quite gets enough votes to actually make him leave. So I can see Freddie at the end.
I think those guys are a good shout. I don't know if I'd choose anyone else different.
We've got Lisa. I think she'll probably get murdered
I think she'll get murdered.
soon. So I don't know.
Because I don't think Freddie would be murdered now, because I don't think he's as much enough of a threat.
Yeah.
He is. I don't know.
Unless he starts coming for Mina really conspicuously and they're like, oh God, we need him out. But then maybe that's too obvious. I don't know. I think Freddy's in it till the end. Uh, Now, listeners, remember that Sophie and I have been trying to deceive one another throughout this podcast in our game of lying and deception. Before we reveal what we lied about and try and guess the other person, we've got some important things to let you know about. Sophie, firstly, tell us where can we find you online? How can we listen to your music? Tell us everything that we need to know about you.
So you guys can find me everywhere on social media at Sophie, which is SOFY sounds. That's my at everywhere. And my new mixtape, Another Day in Paradise, comes out on the 7th of March, which is very exciting. If you guys like Well, if you listen to this podcast, you obviously like lore and storylines and Easter eggs. So yeah, that mixtape is a chronological concept project about a relationship. So you can listen to it and you can do some digging about what you think it might be about. And yeah, then let me know if you do listen through. Um, and yeah, we'll also be touring that mixtape in April around the UK. So you can get tickets online. Just type in SOFY UK tour and it'll come up. But there's not that many left, so if you want to do it, you should do it soon.
Okay, excellent. Well, this episode will be out like within hours of us recording, so people will be able to hear this really quickly. Um, is it annoying, Sophie, when like as a musician, is it annoying when people compare you to other musicians and say like, "Oh, you sound like this," or "You're like," does that bother you?
No, I think it's always a compliment to be compared to someone as long as they're good, as long as it's not like I don't know, I can't think of bad artists off the top of my head. But
I'm asking because I've been listening to your music and there's a couple of people that in a really positive way reminded me of um I think some of your music makes me think of like No Doubt, like early No Doubt, and I love No
that's a
Doubt.
great shout. I love that. That's a
Um
really
and also like the Cardigans as well.
thank
And
you. Yeah,
I
they're very.
also like they're incredible. So just like I'm just trying to give listeners like a little flavor of like what might you get. You should definitely go and listen to Sophie's music. So good. As for this podcast, if you've enjoyed, then as always, it's great if you can subscribe or leave a nice review on whatever platform you're using. And you can follow on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Trade Hour Podcast. And you can leave comments in all those places. You can also send me an email at thetradehourpodcast@gmail.com. You can, of course, leave a voice message, just like Chris did today, at memo.fm/thetradehourpodcast. And I'm saying it again, all of the people who send a voicemail, you're going into a competition to win a brand new shiny Traitors board game, but it is only for people in the UK and Ireland. I'm very sorry. And lastly, sort of lastly, for now, you could, like the people I mentioned earlier, put in a little donation if you feel that you're able to do that and you want to help the podcast keep going. That's at ko-fi.com/ Matthew Keeley. All of these links are in the episode description, as well as the links to where you can find Sophie online. Um, Before we reveal our game, I keep saying that we're going to reveal the game and then I say one more thing, but I do have to say this. There's a lot more content coming your way from the trader. The next UK recap episode will be here tomorrow, as will the next Traitors US Series 3 recap. I'm stepping in to host that just for a little change with an actual traitor from the Traitors, and I teased this yesterday. You're going to have to listen in to that episode to find out who that is. In fact, I'll be recording with her in just a few hours. And I said this in the last episode, but I'm saying it again in case you're thinking, why are you telling me about US traitors? I can't watch US traitors. I'm in the UK. Stop it. The BBC have announced that the first 5 episodes of Traitors US will drop on Friday, the 24th of January, the same day as the UK finale. And then one episode will appear on iPlayer every Friday, and that's just hours after it airs in the US. So, UK viewers, you will be totally up to date on Traitors US, and you will be able to listen to the trailer to have it all covered. And we've already done episodes 1 to 3, so they're already out there. Um, Now, it's time for us, Sophie, to see how good we are at being traitors because we've been playing the Trader Traitor. Did you, at some point, tell me a lie today?
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
I also told you a lie, so I'm really sorry, but also hope you don't catch me. Um, I'm gonna hand over to you. Do you have any guesses what I may have lied about?
I'm not gonna lie. I was thinking. I'm not gonna lie. I did lie, but I was thinking. I was like, what the hell has he lied about? Because I feel like I was so, and you probably did this on purpose. I feel like I was so engaged in your recap of the show. It was so detailed, by the way. That I was struggling to pick up on anything. The only thing that I can think of is that you don't actually have a cat and they're not locked in another room. I think you're a
Okay.
dog person.
Um, I am going to reveal to you that that was not my lie at all.
Ooh.
And I
What is your cat
not
called?
not only do I have a cat, I know this is going to make the listeners think I'm insane. I actually have four cats. So,
Oh my God.
and they are all in other rooms, locked away because I do not trust them to not do something insane like knock over the lights and the laptop while I'm recording.
Yeah, I have no idea then. What are your cats called, by the way?
Oh, they're called Luna, Matilda, Loki, and Astrid.
Oh, cute. Okay, that's definitely true.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I have no
Um,
idea. You've flummoxed me. I've got no idea.
okay, my lie was quite recent. It was in like the last maybe 10 minutes or so. I We were talking about celebrity traitors, and I made up a little
Oh,
story, and I said, "Oh, I know someone on TV, and they told me that Danny Minogue's going to be on it." I made all of that up. I have absolutely no idea who's going to be on Celebrity Traitors.
that was so
So,
sneaky. You said that with such conviction as well. I really just thought it was true. So do you
well,
actually work in TV? No.
I do work in TV. I do work in
I just
TV
believe I
development.
thought it was so believable. I like Danny Minogue as well. I don't know how good she'd be on Traitors, but
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she ended up on it, but
maybe we've manifested. Let's see.
maybe we have. And I just used your love of X Factor to trick you. I thought you might fall for it, and it
That
worked.
was extremely devious of you.
Right, your lie. I've got a couple of possibilities. So, you said that you watched the episode last night with your bandmates, and I thought that could be a lie. Maybe you didn't watch it with them at all. And there's one other thing, and this is the one I'm going to go for, I think. You said that you know someone who does like sound for you called Luke, and Luke w was on the Traitors, and he helped with the sound there and mic'd the players up and stuff. I think maybe Luke's real, but maybe he doesn't work on the Traitors. Is that your lie?
No, Luke is real and he does work
Oh
on the Traitors.
man!
He does.
Oh,
But
really thought I had it.
the lie was that Charlotte requested Welsh cakes at breakfast. I made that. That was fake. You got so
Oh
close.
man. I was like in the region.
Yeah, it was a lie embedded in the truth.
Very sneaky, very
Very
clever,
sweet.
very
Play you
traitorous.
at your own game, Matthew.
Man, that's when I think I'm getting good at the game. Just fail all over again. Sophie, it's been an absolute treat to have you on the podcast. I hope you enjoyed getting right into episode 8 with me today.
Thank you very much for having me. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yes, very excited to see if our predictions come true. Listeners, until the next episode, which is coming imminently, keep us on your radar. Bye bye.
Bye.